Sunday the 9th, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I have lots of cloudification going on. The sun's still up, as you might infer. Backyard is a bit leaf-ridden, but I wanted to point out a few things. One, I think I built this observatory and designed and built it in 2022, and it finally needed a new coat of paint. So I stained the walls and painted the roof tries. I picked this up along the line. It's a nice little multicolored light that you can charge up with solar power. I'll show you the inside. I did manage, I had to split it up into several occasions to get to the very tip of the roof. Okay. So of course this is the routine I have to generally follow in order to be able to set up the scope. Typically I put the laptop down on this table, and you'll notice there is a different scope from the one originally, because I have basically determined that faster is better with a ZWO imaging system, as you'll see at the top there. And the reason it's better is because you want to bring all the pixels to bear in gathering and collecting and forwarding light to the ASI Studio application. Because I noticed pretty much that I was not going as deep with the F8 ED refractor, even though its optics are superior, simply because I was having to run it up to 300x or 100% e-zoom or 300x to be able to gather all the light that was available and put it on the screen, and it was just too ugly. The stars were bloating out, etc., etc. And I do not have a 2-inch reducing Barlow for the F8. Now meanwhile, the F8 was pretty much taking up a lot of space in the observatory, so why not switch them around? I have put out a video where I compare imagery from the two scopes, F4 and the F8. Originally with the Rev 2 system I do have a 0.5 reducing Barlow, but that's 1.25 inches, not a 2-inch, so I couldn't use it with the ZWO system, which is mounts on a 2-inch scope. I added some strain reliefs here, both for power and for the ZWO system. Now I can't put the little hoodie over the top of the ZWO, but I can put the whole scope onto a hoodie. Okay, I thought I'd give you an idea of the mechanics associated with collimating the primary mirror. What you have here are your adjusters. They have a spring on them so that they will cause the mirror to tilt in various axes. You only need 3. And I've discovered you do need to be able to adjust all 3. Typically if you have 4, I'm not sure that many Newtonians do, you would leave one untouched. But the tendency would be to leave the top one untouched anyway and then make slight adjustments to these until you absolutely have to make a slight adjustment on the x-axis here. Meanwhile, the adjustments are actually done using these lead screws right here. So actually the adjustments are done using the knurled knobs, and then once your adjustment is done, you'd lock it in using these knurled lead screws right here. Okay, so I did a fair job the other night, as anyone who has seen the recent video did a fair job of getting it aligned. However, not perfect, because what you want to see is stars that go in and out of focus with perfect circles around them, and then when you go to high magnification, you want to see a star be a perfect circle without any part of it being diminished in magnitude. And the other night I noticed they were a bit diminished in magnitude towards the top, which I believe was east. Anyway, you got the secondary spider adjustments here that you have to make using these 4 knobs. There's no mechanical adjustment. You simply have to move, slightly move the vanes by pulling and pushing on this. So there's not a whole lot of adjustment that's done here. The scope sells for about $600, so you can imagine they don't spend that much time out of the factory collimating. If you look inside here, you can see the 2-inch light pollution filter, and ordinarily you might put if you have a 0.5 Barlow, you're going to have it pretty close to the eyepiece, so it's going to be up in this location here. Not needed in this particular case because you can see it's got a very short focus Newtonian reflector, which is designed specifically for imaging use. As I pointed out, I mounted a couple of strain reliefs here, and I've routed the cabling so that they'll be free of motion without getting entangled. I mounted another strain relief here, but one of the factors is it makes it very difficult to deny power to either end. You would normally pull off the power connector to the ZWO at the top, or you would remove this 12-volt DC adapter head from the cable and separate it. At this point, because I want to leave the power up both to the Losman D, I'm just leaving the power on. Hopefully that will not cause a longevity issue with the ZWO imager, and it probably shouldn't. Most electronics does not like to be turned on and off. It prefers to be lit up low. So this evening I probably will get a star, and if I get some stars then I can do the collimation, and maybe what I'll do is I will capture the screen of the collimation to show you what kind of improvement may be possible. So there we have it. My view of the weather. You can see there's a lot of flux coming in out of the south and big weather system pushing in from the west. Here is about where I observe from, this location here in eastern Oregon. And you can see there are high sporadic clouds passing up along the northern California coast and then spiraling towards eastern Oregon. So I would not say that I'm going to have particularly good imaging this night. I probably won't have it at all, but I will be open to the possibility. Meanwhile, I hope to be able to demonstrate basically how to do a primary and secondary alignment in terms of imaging stars on the screen, and I'll describe some of the adjustments I'm making. So there is our view of the https www.star.nesdis.noaa.gov, capital GOES, sector band PHP question mark. Then there's a whole bunch of parameters that you have to select in order to be able to get the view of the Earth that you want to inspect for current and possibly to project out weather conditions over the next day or two. It is now 4:49:50 in the afternoon of the 10th of November 2025. It's a Monday. You're looking at a synchronized to Vega in the middle of the screen. And my goal for this evening is just to do a bit more in terms of collimating the primary mirror and the secondary. Now, it looks pretty sharp right there, doesn't it? Well, let's zoom in and see. We're at 31% zoom, which is probably somewhere around 45 to 50x. 20% zoom is 35 using El Quattro, the F4. Let's push it up to 100% zoom, which uses all our pixels and gives us, and you can see it doesn't look much like a star anymore. So let's see if we can bring her into focus. Now notice something. If I go to both sides of focus, you see a ring with a dot in the middle. Well, the dot isn't perfectly centered, but notice the ring. The ring expands out pretty well on either side of focus, which tells me that the parabolics is pretty good. So this scope is probably 1/4 wave corrected at minimum. This is how you do a star test. If you were to see a nice bright circle one side of focus and then a kind of a fainter circle the other side of focus at high magnification, that would tell you that you aren't getting the best possible resolution. So I'm going to push it up to now 300x for our attempts to do a little better job of collimating the primary. And we will go to one side of the focus and then the other. There is a bit of distortion. Now that could be atmospherics. But anyway, let me go ahead. Now what I'd rather have is a nice wide flat field of many faint stars that I could check to see where the distortion was centered. But for right now, we're just going to go ahead and play with the adjustment screws I showed earlier in this video. So I'm going to back off on the locks. Those are those lead screwy type things. Then I'm going to make a slight adjustment to one of them, and we're going to see what happens. Now you notice that Vega shift in the field. That's because the scope is now going to pointing its light towards another part. Now notice this. Is the distortion worse towards the bottom or towards the top? And it looks to me like the distortion stays pretty stable. Now we're only covering about 5 arc minutes at 300x, so we're not really shifting it that much. Now let's go ahead and put it back in the center and experiment with a knob to the right and see what happens to the circularity of the image. Seems like it's getting maybe a little more distorted to the lower right than to the upper left, but I can't really be sure. Let's just put it back to the center. Okay, now we're going to adjust the other knurled knob. Any sense of it improving? It's kind of hard to tell because we have that flattening towards the upper left-hand corner of the circularity. So what we're seeing here is it's very difficult to tell at this point whether or not we're actually getting any improvement over a 3 or 4 arc minute shift. Let's back out a little bit on our magnification so we can extend it further afield, so to speak. We're going to go back to the top middle. Right lower. Seems to be getting flatter when I go to the right lower. Let's go take a look at the upper left. Looks a little rounder to me up in the upper left. So I'm going to put it right about here. Then we're going to adjust the other mirror job. Now, there's a problem because the mirror may not be properly up to temperature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right back here and recenter, and then we'll drop out a little bit. Now, I'm going to have to probably wait for the temperatures to stabilize, but I am going to play anyway with the secondary spider a little bit. And there is no good method for adjusting that secondary spider. Okay, all I'm going to do now is some random motions on the part of the secondary spider. As I said, there's no fine adjustment. It's a purely mechanical shift. So this adjustment here is longitudinal to the telescope axis. You can see it shifting left and right a little bit. And these two up and down. Wow, that really changed the focus quite a bit, didn't it? You know, I do not like that break that we're seeing in the circularity of the star image. And I can only get a sense. Now, I haven't done this much because I don't play with reflectors very much. But I only get a sense that we've got something wildly off. What could account for that flat area above? So let me go ahead and play with things a little bit, and then we'll get back and see if we can't solve that, if I can't solve that mystery. Well, alrighty, yes, I do believe that's the roof try up there. I had hoped that I was getting a complete 100% view of Vega, but I may not be. But the rest of that circle looks pretty good. So I'm going to assume this blank area right here, this flat area, is due to a roof try. And what we're going to do is we're going to try to shift that stellar point as close as we can to the center here. And otherwise, we go ahead and adjust the focus in and out. Yep, it does shift to the other side. Now that's not looking too bad. I'm going to go ahead and maybe shift to Deneb now and see what we get. All right, hold on a second. Okay, I pretty much confirmed now we're looking straight up and we don't have a blockage. Let's return to our 300x view. Now we're seeing all of the circularity. Okay, I'm going to go back to the primary mirror now and see if we can't make some adjustments. Loosening up those lockers, going to the one at the top, and let's see what we're doing here. It looks like we're a little longer above and below. We want to spread it out to the right and to the left. So let's go that way. No, not happy with that. I want a perfect circularity if we can possibly get it. Now notice there's a couple of annularities here. There's an inner one and an outer one. And it's getting a little more compressed over here, which tells me we are not well collimated. Now I am going to play with the secondary a little bit and come back. So I don't want this video to get too long. Okay, I think we're doing a little better job of distinguishing the inner and outer annularities of Deneb. So I'm going to lock in the secondary for the time being and move back to the primary to make some more adjustments. Okay, folks, I've done a pretty good job of distinguishing the two annularities. Now, I'm not necessarily perfectly happy with this, but I just received a phone call. I am going to knock off, and we're going to have to live with this. And it does look like the sky is improving a little bit. So I may actually get some deep sky astro in this evening. If not, that's it for me. I'll have to report in future astrovids on any additional progress in getting El Quattro collimated.